Hello, in this video we will discuss about the hydrophobic and hydrophilic interaction and cell signaling pathway in the cell. So let's first of all we should understand about the hydrophobic and hydrophilic interaction or lipophobic and lipophilic interaction. So let's begin to understand. Here is the person which that is contain tissue. This tissue is the different type of tissue in the whole body, but here we will taking the simple tissue which that is, for example, muscle tissue. So it contain a cell. So the cell will on the surface of the cell membrane is the receptor are present. Either receptor is used for the movement of molecule or without the receptor movement of molecule. So here is the hydrophilic molecule is not moved directly, while the hydrophobic molecule or lipophilic molecule will move directly inside of the cell. So the lipophobic, why? Because the lipophobic is not, because it is hydrophilic, and the bilayer of the plasma membrane of the phospholipids is not able to move inside the molecule. So let's begin to understand all things. So here is the cell membrane of the cell, and it is cell, and it's contain a nucleus, and nucleus is also made up of phospholipid, of bilayer of phospholipid, and contain inside is the chromosome. This chromosome is condensed formation with the histone protein and DNA. So here I am taking the DNA. So let's begin to understand first of all hydrophobic molecule interaction or lipophilic. So the lipophilic mean the loving to the lipid, and hydrophobic mean the hate to the water. So the fear of the water, it means that molecule. So here is the for example, it is kidney, and kidney contain adrenal gland in the form of pair due to the pair of the kidney. So these adrenal gland is contain adrenal medulla and adrenal cortex, which is contain epinephrine production and norepinephrine from the adrenal cortex, while in the adrenal medulla the steroid is produced, cortisol, testosterone, and glucocorticoid. So anyhow, here we will discuss about that this is the hydrophobic while the lipophilic. So it can be moved directly inside of the cell. So first of all it will go into the blood vessel, into the circulatory system, and where the need of the requirement of this hormone, it will be bind with the carrier protein. So carrier protein is a part of the cell membrane which that is attached with the cell. So here is the basically steroid is the hydrophobic and lipophobic philic. So that will be go inside directly into the cytoplasm. So let's begin to understand. Here is the steroid molecule which that is carrier protein or remain soluble. So the basically carrier protein is basically attached with the cell membrane inside. It is the integral protein. So here I am drawing just for understanding, but it is attached with the plasma membrane in the form of integral protein. So it will be allowed to move this molecule inside of into the cytoplasm, and after this movement of this cytoplasm, the second carrier protein will bind with this molecule, and conformational change of this carrier protein 3 degree to 4 degree 3 degree to convert 4 degree. So it means the DNA binding region is occur. So this is first of all we should understand about. Here is the cholesterol are present in the lipid bilayer of the phospholipids. So this cholesterol is allowed to facilitate the movement of this molecule inside, while there is the asymmetrical structure of the bilayer of phospholipid, because there are different molecule is attached inside as compared to the outside. So here is the hydrophilic and hydrophobic interaction in the phospholipid. You can see. So the lipid contain a hydrophobic while the phosphate group contain a hydrophilic region. So here is the conformation change. After this conformation change, DNA binding region will be formed. So let's begin to understand how to produce and how to give a response. So we will understanding the response first. So it is go into the to become a transcriptional factor. So it is called transcriptional factor, which is go into the nuclear pore and bind with the DNA to produce messenger RNA. That is known as the transcription. While after the transcription go into the cytoplasm to produce protein by a translation by different mechanism. But here we will not understanding about that mechanism. So this protein is the maturation after the endoplasmic reticulum to go into the Golgi bodies. When go into the Golgi bodies, it will be bound with the cis phase to transfer to maturation to become a vesicle. This vesicle is export into the cytoplasm or outside of the cytoplasm by exocytosis. So it will go into the by exocytosis to go into the blood, and it is where the need bilayer of phospholipid will be become a uh, uh, exocytosed. So this export into the blood and it will receive in the muscle cells, bone cells, skin cells, hair follicle cells or something which that is used for the development and growth. So important thing is that it is basically export where required. So for example, actin is a molecule, is a protein which that is made up of amino acid, is required for the muscle development. So obviously it will be go into the muscle. While on the other hand, the bone is another system which that is another protein used. While on the other hand, hair, skin growth is due to the different type of protein. So that is the response. While the signal is the carrier protein will carry the steroid and move inside because it is the hydrophobic but lipophilic. It means it can be moved. But on the in the case of hydrophilic pathway, which that is different as compared to it, here is the blood vessel. So let's begin to understand about the hydrophilic pathway or lipophobic pathway. So the hydrophilic pathway is basically here is the blood vessel which contain a blood and different type of cells. So here is the blood vessel of the circulatory system. So let's begin to understand about the basically how to produce that hormone which that is the primary messenger and give the response by the secondary messenger. So the hydrophilic pathway required the secondary messenger also, but in the case of hydrophobic molecules which that is not required the second messenger. So here is the pituitary gland which that is attached with the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus produces the somatotropin releasing factor which that is stimulate the adenohypophysis as compared to the neurohypophysis. So the anterior pituitary gland which that is anterior lobe is produce the growth hormone that is known as somatostatin. For example, so these somatostatin go into the blood vessel, into the circulatory system, and where the need of this growth hormone that will be bind. So here is the water soluble hormone. Water soluble mean it is unable to move inside into the cytoplasm of the cell. So here is the different types of receptor are present. A cell membrane receptor. There are many receptors are present for attachment of the growth hormone. For example, the water soluble hormone. So these membrane insoluble hormones, lipophobic, which that is the primary messenger, is known as a ligand, which that is bind with the receptor to initiate the secondary messenger by their different activity. So here is the activated after first signal G protein. G protein is the basically in peripheral protein which that is bind with the ionic bond, not tightly bond is a covalently. So after this binding with the basically primary messenger though, so that is here the water soluble molecule in the membrane which that is the integral protein. So that after the movement, after the binding, it means that is the cell membrane receptor and it is the primary messenger which that is activate the G protein to release from the plasma membrane. So that will be activate the adenylate cyclase enzyme. This enzyme is also integral protein. are present in the plasma membrane inside between the bilayer of the phospholipids. So it will be use the ATP and G protein to activate the cyclic AMP. So this cyclic AMP is a secondary messenger. While in the case of, on the other hand, the hydrophobic pathway, which that is not required this mechanism. So here is the protein kinase enzyme, which that is activate the cyclic AMP to bind the activate protein kinase. It is activated by the cyclic AMP. So activation of these, the ATP use again to release the phosphate group, while in the case of their cycle is continuous on the basis of requirement. So important thing is there, the phosphate group is basically is bind by this activated protein kinase will be bind. Inactivated protein is cytoplasmic protein are present in the cytoplasm, which that is bind with the phosphate group in the presence of activated protein kinase, which that is stimulate. So there are many type of inactivated proteins or cytoplasmic protein are present in the cytoplasm. So it will become a phosphorylated protein kinase, which that is phosphorylated in the basically protein kinase phosphorylated in the you can see that in the cytoplasm. So this activated protein is the transcriptional factor because it is bind with the phosphate group. And another way is again the activated protein will become a protein kinase inactivated to become again activated by the messenger secondary messenger of the molecule signaling pathway. So that means here is the DNA. DNA is present in the nucleus. So here is the nuclear pore, which that is allowed to facilitate movement of this transcriptional factor into the nucleus and binding with the phosphate group as well as the protein kinase phosphorylated in the cytoplasm. So that means it will be polymerase 1 enzyme is bind and promoter region bind to become a complex transcriptional factor to produce the messenger RNA. So this is known as the transcription. This transcription produce the messenger RNA, and this messenger RNA will go into the cytoplasm, and it will be go into the cytoplasm to produce protein by the translational process, which that is we are not understanding in this video. So this protein is useful for the plasma membrane development and basically channel protein production, as well as on the other hand export to the into the blood vessel for production of another things. For example, here I am discussing about the hormones, steroid production, enzymes, porine, exportin, tubulin, flagellin, which produce the flagella in the plasma membrane. You can see in this video. So the porine is used for the facilitate of the water in the plasma membrane, and the flagella, globulin, which that is used for the red blood cell, and actin and myosin used for the muscle contraction, and cyclin is basically used for the cell division. So here I am discussing about the again to understand the what is the hydrophilic pathway and hydrophobic pathway. So let's begin to summarize this hydrophilic pathway. So the hydrophilic pathway is the not moves molecule inside to the basically to the cytoplasm by the basically required second signal. So these are non-steroidal molecules such as glucagon and insulin are produced from the pancreas. While on the other hand, important thing is that here is the hydrophobic pathway, which that is not required the second messenger and directly move inside of the cell into the cytoplasm. So these molecules directly moves into the cell by helping the carrier protein, other binding protein. So both is the similar for signaling molecules. Both are cell signaling molecules. So thanks for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, like and share. Ask the question for answer and comment about the artwork. Bye.